This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Invest Like a Pro, and today we're going to do a stock market update. I'm doing it right at the close on Thursday for an update for Friday morning. Let's go ahead and get into this. I want to make sure I cover all of the market conditions, and then I'm going to go through each of the individual time frames. And that's really going to cover the trend and momentum. The one change I would say of significance this week is that I did place the weekly trend at positive now. It moved from neutral to positive. All right. And what that means is that I think, and I'll show you why, but I believe that there is going to be some support on a pullback. So I view that as being a pretty big difference. Now, we have to keep something in mind. You see what happens here? We got neutral momentum across the board. The daily, I actually put back into neutral camp after what the DI lines did. So I'll go, and the MACD. So I'll show you why. Let's start with the sentiment. The sentiment cooled off a little bit. The bulls were up at 49% last week. They're back to 45%. The difference between the two is at 18. Now, as I've mentioned in the past, when we have a number of bulls, when we're moving up like we've been doing, the bulls getting up into the low to mid 50s is where I'd start to get worried. We haven't had that signal yet, and this would be placed in the negative camp if that's the case. Now, if we look at the overbought oversold oscillator, it's at 66%. I'm still leaving it in the negative camp, even though it really isn't overbought right now. And the reason is that I've looked at thousands of stocks over the course of the past week, and I can tell you for a fact that a lot of stocks, a lot of leading stocks, a lot of winning stocks, ones that I think will look good on a pullback, are overbought right now. So that influenced me a little bit to leave this overbought. I would like to say, and the other thing that I'll mention is if you look at the weekly chart, we have this move to the upside. We have paused, but we haven't really pulled back. We still have a little bit of distance between the price right now and it's 18. So that was the reason why I left that in the negative camp for overbought, oversold. Now, one thing I should mention is we went back to positive for volatility in both the daily and the weekly. Hopefully you guys saw my Tuesday video where I go into the ATR. Yes, the daily one I believe is more sensitive and probably gives the best signals. But I like to have the weekly supporting, and you can see the weekly line is actually hitting a new low right now. I mean, it's not like it's bouncing a little bit or there's volatility increase even in a minor way. Even though this line has rolled over, this is still dropping. So this just, I'm not saying that we can't plunge. I'm saying the odds of that happening with the way this looks and the way this looks are not very high. And I know we didn't finish very well today, but it hasn't been reflected in the daily ATR yet. And typically we will see this start to turn up, both of these lines turning up before we get any kind of a real deep pullback or anything. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the individual time frames. And, I think it's hard to ignore a pattern like this where we have a move to the downside and the 18 on any time frame rolls over, fails at it once, and now we're rallying back up toward it, and it's providing resistance. I'm not saying it's failed yet, but it's definitely providing some resistance. I still want to put this the momentum in the neutral camp because this was negative when we were overbought. But we've worked off a lot of that, and this is actually starting to flatten out. I mean, I would actually start to feel kind of encouraged by this. And the fact that red DI never got above the 25 level. Now, red is above green, so we've got enough of a pattern here that I would consider it neutral, not positive. But I definitely wouldn't put it in the negative camp either. So we've got this rally to the 18-month. Now we have to look at and evaluate what's going on the weekly chart. And my problem with this is that we have this move to the upside. We have gotten the 18 above the 40. The 40 is really more flat than down, but the 18 is definitely rising. We do have MACD above the zero line. We have green above red, but both lines below 25. If this would have come up, green would have come up and done that, then I would probably be, I would probably have the momentum positive for the weekly. But we don't have that. So you could argue that this is just kind of a rally up. Now, we have taken out a pretty key trend line, so we can't just ignore that. But we don't have the momentum and conditions in place yet to make me feel like there's a power move coming. What would make me feel better actually is if we get a pullback a little bit closer to the 18 and we don't get any sellers to show up. This line is going to keep rising during that period and will probably form a little pinch here right at the 0 line. So if we can get that to develop, then I'm just going to start feeling a little bit better that we could really punch through this 18-month line. Right now, we have a battle on our hands between the 18-month and the 18-week. Now, typically, the 18-month carries more weight than the weekly line would. And it still does to me right now when I look at the index from a top-down standpoint. My problem is that I'm a bottom-up technician and I look at thousands of charts and there are so many charts that look way better than the market. I mean, it's not, you wouldn't even think we're in a bear market with some of these stocks, and a lot of big breakout patterns and a lot of really strong momentum on the weekly and the daily. So I have to take that into account. I can't just ignore that. I can't do it. So what we've got is a trend line to watch here on this index. If we break that trend line and then test it and turn back down, then I'd start to feel a little bit more nervous, especially if that is coinciding with a break of this 18-week and this trend line. So that's kind of what I'd be on the lookout for. Now, if we're going to move to the upside, the fact of the matter is there are a lot of stocks that are already moving to the upside. I'm doing your daily 5 this afternoon, Friday afternoon. So it's at 1 o'clock on Stock Charts TV. So if you want to see some ideas, go ahead and watch that. But I'd kind of like to see this come up back up through this little consolidation area and trigger on the hourly to the upside by getting back above this sort of resistance area. And then I might feel a little bit better about the potential here. But we have a low ADX pattern and it actually looks kind of weak right now. So again, I really wouldn't mind to see this pull back a little bit. I just think we've got this underlying support from the 18 and the 40. And at this point, I think we have to respect those just based on the way everything's happening. Now, the only other point I wanted to make here is that I turned the momentum back to neutral for a couple of reasons on the daily chart. Number one, I do like to look at price even with momentum. And notice how this is just trading around this breakout level. I mean, if we were doing this on top of the breakout level, I might feel a little bit better about it. Notice also that the MACD has closed back down below its signal line, right? Now, these are both above the 0 line, but that little rollover pattern is a short-term negative. The other short-term negative is that the buyers have now made a lower high and a lower low. Now, we don't have that confirmation in the sellers yet. And I think I mentioned this last week. I'd like to see this make a higher high, and then we'd have a little bit of confirmation that we're moving into a contraction phase, and I think that would confirm a break of the 18-day. Now, I'm doing this Thursday night. For all I know, the futures are going to be really negative. We could open up below this 18, and maybe this will start the day and get this red DI going. So, just be on the lookout for that Friday morning and see what kind of reaction we get. But what it seems like to me is that there's no follow through in either direction. We're not getting a real sign of strength from the buyers, and we're really not getting a sign of strength from the sellers yet. So we need something a little bit more definitive right now. And I kind of think it's because we're caught between the 18-month and the 18-week, and they're going in opposite directions. So if you think this is a high probability environment, based on a market top-down approach, I would just totally disagree. When I look at the bottom up, when I look at the individual stocks and the sectors and what's going on and a lot of the price action, I'm feeling pretty good about what's taking place. But I don't ignore this 18-month. This 18 months probably on the S&P and the spider is probably the most important line in the market. So we have to get through that. All right, so that's the update for the week. Go ahead and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.